Imagine standing at the center of the greatest civilization the ancient world had ever seen. Marble temples stretching toward the sky, aqueducts carrying fresh water across hundreds of kilometers, legions of soldiers marching in perfect formation across 3 continents. Rome was not just a city, it was an idea, a force, a promise of order in a chaotic world. At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled over 5 million square kilometers of land and governed nearly 1/3 of the entire world's population. And then, over the course of centuries, it crumbled. How does something so powerful, so deeply embedded into the fabric of civilization, simply cease to exist? That question has haunted historians, philosophers, and scholars for over 1,500 years. The answer is not simple. It never is when empires fall. To understand the fall, you must first understand the height. Rome began as a small city-state along the Tiber River in central Italy around the 8th century before the Common Era. Through centuries of military conquest, political ingenuity, and cultural absorption, it grew into a republic and eventually, under Julius Caesar and then Augustus Caesar in 27. Before the Common Era, it transformed into an empire. Augustus became the first true Roman emperor, and under his reign, Rome entered what historians call the Pax Romana, meaning Roman peace, a period of roughly 200 years where the empire expanded, trade flourished, and architecture reached breathtaking heights. The Colosseum, the Pantheon, the Roman Forum, these were not just buildings. They were declarations of permanence. Rome was meant to last forever. But permanence, as history repeatedly teaches us, is an illusion. The cracks began forming from within. Following the death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 Common Era, Rome entered a period of increasing political instability. The 3rd century Common Era became known as the crisis of the 3rd century, a 50-year span between 235 and 284 Common Era, during which Rome saw over 50 different emperors, many of whom were assassinated, overthrown, or killed in battle. The Senate, once a powerful governing body, became increasingly irrelevant. Military generals began appointing themselves emperor through sheer force. Loyalty was bought, not earned. Corruption spread through every layer of government like rot through old timber. When leadership becomes unstable, everything built upon it begins to shake. Citizens lost faith in their government. Provincial governors acted in their own interests. The very system that had held the empire together began consuming itself. Political chaos had a direct and devastating impact on the Roman economy. Maintaining a massive empire required enormous resources. Roads, armies, grain supplies, and administrative systems all demanded constant funding. To meet these demands, Roman emperors began devaluing their currency, reducing the silver content in coins to mint more money. What followed was severe inflation. Prices rose dramatically while the value of money fell. Trade slowed. The middle class, which had been the economic backbone of the empire, began to disappear. Heavy taxation crushed farmers and merchants alike. Many citizens abandoned their land entirely, unable to pay the taxes imposed upon them. Agricultural production declined. Food shortages became more frequent. The empire was spending far more than it was generating, and no amount of financial manipulation could hide that reality for long. Rome's greatest strength had always been its military. The Roman legions were among the most disciplined and effective fighting forces in the ancient world. But maintaining an army capable of defending borders that stretched from Britain in the northwest to Mesopotamia in the east was an extraordinary logistical challenge. As the empire expanded, supply lines grew longer, communication became slower, and the cost of maintaining frontier defenses became unsustainable. To fill the ranks of a shrinking military, Rome began recruiting heavily from Germanic and other non-Roman peoples. While many of these soldiers were skilled fighters, their loyalty to Rome was often limited. The cultural cohesion that had once defined the Roman legions began to erode. Commanders prioritized personal power over imperial defense. The military, once the empire's greatest shield, was becoming its greatest vulnerability. With weakened borders and an overstretched military, Rome became increasingly vulnerable to external pressure. The Visigoths, a Germanic people who had long lived along the empire's borders, were themselves being pushed westward by the advancing Huns from Central Asia. In 376 Common Era, the Visigoths crossed the Danube River into Roman territory, seeking refuge. Roman officials treated them brutally, exploiting and abusing them rather than integrating them. The result was rebellion. In 378 Common Era, at the Battle of Adrianople, the Visigoths defeated a Roman army and killed Emperor Valens, one of the most catastrophic military defeats in Roman history. In 410 Common Era, under their leader Alaric, the Visigoths sacked Rome itself, an event that sent shockwaves across the entire ancient world. The Vandals followed, crossing into North Africa and cutting off Rome's grain supply before sacking the city again in 455 Common Era. The empire was bleeding from every direction. In an attempt to manage the empire's overwhelming size, Emperor Diocletian divided it administratively in 285 Common Era, creating an eastern and western half, each with its own emperor. Emperor Constantine later moved the imperial capital to Constantinople in modern-day Turkey in 330 Common Era, effectively shifting the center of Roman power eastward. The eastern half, wealthier, more urbanized, and with more defensible borders, continued to thrive. The western half, facing constant barbarian pressure, economic decline, and political instability, continued to deteriorate. The division that was meant to save Rome ultimately accelerated the Western Empire's collapse by separating its resources and fragmenting its identity. By the mid-5th century Common Era, the Western Roman Empire was a shadow of its former self. Real power had shifted to barbarian military commanders who controlled puppet emperors. In 476 Common Era, the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus, without even bothering to appoint a replacement. There was no dramatic final battle, no burning of the city. The empire simply stopped functioning. Historians mark this moment, 476 Common Era, as the official end of the Western Roman Empire. It was not an explosion, it was an exhaustion. While the West collapsed, the Eastern Roman Empire, known to history as the Byzantine Empire, endured for nearly another 1,000 years, finally falling to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 Common Era. The East survived because it retained stronger economic foundations, more stable governance, better defended geography, centered around the fortified city of Constantinople, and continued control of vital trade routes connecting Europe and Asia. The Byzantine Empire preserved Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian theology, passing these traditions forward into the medieval world. It was, in many ways, Rome's greatest legacy. The Roman Empire did not fall because of a single catastrophic moment. It declined through centuries of political instability, economic deterioration, military overextension, and relentless external pressure. Each weakness fed the next, creating a slow, irreversible unraveling that no single emperor or policy could reverse, and yet Rome never truly disappeared. Its legal systems form the foundation of modern law across Europe and beyond. Its language, Latin, gave birth to French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Its architectural principles still shape cities today. Its concept of a republic influenced the founding of the United States. Rome fell, but its ideas refused to die. So here is a question worth sitting with. If the most powerful empire in human history could fall not from a single blow but from centuries of internal decay, what does that tell us about the civilizations we are building today?